I had my days mixed up. That was Tuesday.
Since Monday, yeah.
Well, it's about time you start apologizing, Ronnie.
Hey, shut up over there.
We're on.
All right, gentlemen. I love it. People can see that we're real too.
I think every committee meeting will start out, somebody's gotta bring a joke every day, every committee meeting. You gotta start out with some humor.
Chandra, you're in charge. That was my joke.
Oh,
That was a good one.
All right,
I'm gonna fall on the floor.
we're gonna kick off. This is the electrical committee. It is February 22nd. Present today are Councilman Sprinkle and Councilman Clay. I have appointed officials, Public Works Director Troy Kruger, City Attorney Paul Jensen, City Finance Officer Chandra Phillips. Always joining us, entertaining, scaring us, Electrical Superintendent Kurt Hawkinson.
entertaining part.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna let you start out. We'll have some questions. I have some thoughts since our seminar, and I hope this kind of goes back to that in some fashion since that last meeting. Nita?
I don't have confirmation yet, but I think it's that first full week in March, the WAPA representative will be here. He's been doing this the last couple of years, and I think Kurt was there, we sat down with him last year, and he talked about the drought monitor and just rate increases, water levels of the Missouri and all that good stuff, what they predict in the next couple of years. So when I get that date, you guys are welcome to that. That's anyone can go to that. I guess Kurt's budget's here. He kind of laid out his plans for last year. What our last meeting, what he's going to do for this, what his plans are for this year. I guess it's a topic, we keep working with DGR, we keep moving forward. I mean, Kurt and I need to sit down and evaluate how much money he can, what he anticipates spending this year, and how much more money we can spend. But when DGR came and gave their big presentation, there's some pretty big numbers on that piece of paper. And so I guess as a city council, as operationally, we need to figure out where we're going. DGR, I mean, I had this conversation with Kurt before we came up here this morning. DGR's like, they're going forward. They want to keep, and I think we need to, but we also need to be realistic about what we can spend every year and or where we're going to find money to, if we choose to go after some of those big projects. I guess we need to, it's hard for Kurt and I to tell DGR what direction to go, how many, some of the stuff that's coming up, and I just told Kurt before the meeting, hey, let's not, but then I got to thinking about it, because there are some, the other thing, timelines, year by year, what realistically, DGR's got an idea, so they laid it all out on paper. Do we agree with that as a city? And if we do, are we gonna take their recommendation and go about it in that order, or is some of the stuff we don't want to pursue? Some of those decisions got to be made before we keep going forward, because Kurt's got it. We got it. 4 or 5 months from now, we got to start formulating his budget to follow that plan. If that's what we choose to do, is follow that plan. So I think this might be something where we, council involved or committee involved for sure, where we bring Jared back now that we've given his presentation, and maybe, involve Trent and start talking, realistically about what we want to pursue and the timeline in which we want to pursue it in and what we can afford as a city. I know when Trent was here, Jared and I sat down, it was Jacob and Trent, Chandra and I, and we sat down and, they're curious also about, what we have for revenues, what we can produce. Some of these things on that electrical, that 15-year outlay that they put in front of us, we're probably gonna have to borrow money. I mean, some of those things are pretty high dollar stuff, and if we wanna pursue them, I'm just saying, this is kind of stuff that I think, and I don't want this system evaluation that we paid for to have DGR do this, and that's one of the reasons that we went a couple of years ago with DGR, because they provided this service for us, and we knew back then that as a city, we need to start doing something with our electrical department. So, we have a plan in place, kind of a plan laid in place now. But now we have engineering behind it to help Kurt with his, yearly tasks and where we're going and make sure that we're doing it right. But I think we also need to take advantage of the money that we spent on this system overview, and we need to, maybe go forward. I don't think it's just Kurt and I. These are big numbers.
So my opinion, Troy, what you're saying is, I do think, you guys had some meetings before they came and presented to the council. That's great. But I agree, we're at the point that I think that we need to have Jared Luzzi come in and speak to the committee, whoever is the electric committee at that time. Because when you have the full council, it's not that it's bad, but you get too many opinions
Or reactions.
and it cuts down on the productivity. We need to have, we committee as portion of the council need to we hear the grand plan, and then we hear what Kurt says, hey, we're doing what we can do currently. And then you guys talk about, but so we need, I feel as the committee, to have a meeting with them to say, okay, this is the big picture. Now, what feasibly, and I do like Kurt, where you're saying you're taking what they're saying, okay, these might be some hot points, and there's only so much you guys can do in angling what you're gonna work there, but have them come in and work out and say, give us a plan, we all talk about and say, okay, this is the goal that the electric committee wants to strive for and how we're gonna get there and try to, and then present it to the whole council that this is what we think. And if the full council disagrees, that's their option, but that's my opinion.
Well, I don't want to let this thing die for a year and then come back next year at this time and say, oh, hey,
We're just
where do we
it
want to
behind.
go with this? I think we have the information right now. We paid for the study. I think those guys did an excellent job. The reason we're getting emails daily from Jared. I mean, Kurt has a lot of communication with Jared. I get a couple emails a week from him. We're working on that grant deal still. But this thing also, I mean, DGR, in their mind, they're going forward with this. And those are billable hours. So everybody needs to be on the same page. Finance, you guys, us, and we need to get together and we need to decide what portions of this thing we're gonna put our time and money into it, and we need to pursue it.
I think it's pretty cut and clear. We go forward with whatever means we have as a city.
Yep.
If we have to borrow, I'll let council determine that. But correct me if I'm wrong. The two scariest things that I heard from Jared that night, our transformer out at the WAPA station has to be addressed, and the 3 lines coming in that quarter mile.
Yeah, I would,
Those are the top 2 priorities I heard.
yeah, with that, I mean, I guess I've kind of described it, he gave you a pie, and it seemed like some people were trying to eat the whole pie in one bite.
Right.
Let's, piece it out. That substation is our biggest
It-
thing.
it is.
The lines coming into it, I would say that'd be a second priority towards it.
Thank you.
Because what mutual aid. Mutual aid comes in at that point of, hey, we had a windstorm or an ice storm that comes through there,
Correct.
knocks all these poles down. We got 30 poles in our yard. Well, we need 40. We can call co-ops, cities, stuff like that. Hey, we got three, we can get the line back up, get people on. The substation goes down, we're weeks. You know,
Right.
and we're sitting in the dark, and then we kind of look bad because there's nothing we can do about it, you know? And
But you're saying primary concern is the
substation,
substation,
yeah.
secondary is the.
Yeah, and, you know, I know it was a lot, but a lot of this stuff we can do as far as if something were to happen to the system inside the town, we can fix that.
Right.
The substation is something that we can't, you know, there's just, you can't have a second substation of all the parts and stuff sitting on there because obviously you've seen the numbers, it's $2.5 to $5 million sitting right there where poles, stuff like that, we can.
Would we
can-
be able to do any of the work as far as, I know he talked about moving those primary lines or burying them or whatever.
It would be, they're talking putting 750 size wire in there. So right now we use like 4/0 and 1/0, I think 750. I've worked with it. It's about that big. I don't know. We can pull.
I'm just asking, I mean.
It's big. I mean, it's like splicing that stuff. You have special tools.
It might
just-
be better to
Where-
contract it and.
We don't
Yeah.
have the equipment to move that kind of wire around.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
It's just the weight
Pulling,
of it.
pulling the wire is kind of our big thing. Like right now, we can pull, I say, about 650 feet. Where, okay, so we're going 650 feet out, you know, you're talking 3/4 of a mile. Every 600 feet, we gotta set another box. Okay, them boxes are $30,000 a piece. So if you could get away with having a contractor and you're able to do
Pull it further.
1,200 feet, something, whatever, you know, they come in 2,500.
The savings of the boxes pays for the contract.
Yeah, potentially, yeah, and that's kind of where, that was why I said with having an engineer to do a little bit of this, because my idea where to set some of those might be different, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'm saying I'm wrong most of the time on it too. You know, when it comes to it, I'm like, you set one of these out there, and it's in the wrong spot, or you didn't need it, you just paid for your engineer to tell you where to do it. And that's kind of the biggest thing, as far as when it comes to kind of burying the town, like I just bounce ideas about it with Jared, like I can kind of plan it. But the big thing is wire sizing and sectionalizing for our town. So we don't have a fault on the wire and we take 1/3 of the town out. You know, and try to get that type of thing. That's what an engineer is really there for, to pinpoint, hey, you need them here, this is the wire sizing and stuff like that. So that's kind of the big thing as far as that go. Like, yeah, them lines are concerning, but they don't make me as nervous as that substation. I'm gonna tell you that right off bat. I've been it where had a substation go down, then had another one go down. Thankfully, it was a coon that got up into the high side of it, and we were able to get it back online, but it was one of those things, we couldn't backfeed off of it. So we were talking, what are we gonna do? You know, and that's kind of the concerning thing out there. And I was kind of mentioning it to Jared, you know, there's like the main transformer that we got, it's, you know, been running good. You know, if you're able to work something out with Rosebud for that older one that's kind of next to it, and might be able to pass it down, you know, 10 years to having to, instead of buying 2x1 type of a thing and stuff like that. And their plans is also with WAPA, you know, having to shut us down twice, that kind of avert those type outages too. And that's another bonus as far as it goes, but yeah, that's, I guess, kind of the biggest concerning thing is, I mean, that's our main feed. Everybody's dark at that point instead of a block or something like that. And them lines coming through there, I would kind of have them as a sub-priority. You know, we can get out to them if we had to and put poles up, get the wire up and everything like that. You know, we can do that and everything. It's just that substation is something that, yeah, tough to get parts. I mean, 3 years.
Once those two things are done, we can set whatever schedule
Yeah,
that
and,
fiscally.
you know,
we need
Right.
to,
I
but
thought he
those
did,
two are huge.
you know, he said the 10-year plan, and I'm gonna be straight up with you, I don't think if we did it all ourselves, didn't hire a contractor, it's gonna take us longer. You know, just from what I've done, I think this this year we'll be able to get out there sooner. You know, I'm thinking probably in 2 weeks, if the weather holds tight, we'll start to be able to start digging. And we might get more in there, but there's also the fact, the first year I was here, we put in about the same amount of wire, but half of it was to new construction, you know, so there's, you know, that type of a thing too, so. But it's not as concerning out into the town as much as it is back on the south side next to that sub, but what do we do to fix it?
Agreed.
Well, you're lucky enough that Mr. Clay happens to be on the finance committee too, so he'll have all sorts of smarts for you. But we are working on a financial plan for the city of Winter over all the projects, because that's one thing you guys are gonna have to consider as a full council. Yes, electric is asking for $17 million, but, kind of. But you also have a $2 million project on Monroe. You also have a Phase $1 million project for 7th Street. You've got, and a lot of those are gonna depend on grants and different things like that. We also know that one bond will be paid off, projecting at the end of 2025. The other one, hoping in 2026 being paid off. Most likely on this one, from my research, you have two options if you don't have a grant. The first option is another sales tax bond. And the second option would be a surcharge on your electric accounts in order to get money to support this. So you're gonna have to look into how the city will support this financially. A bond, you'll be limited on how much you can get, because that goes against constitutional debt. Surcharge, ultimately, they'll tell you what you have to charge your customers in order to pay for your loan. So there are options, but those are all things you'll have to consider, and which priority you want to go with. Do you want to, is Monroe the priority over substation? That's your guys' decision. I obviously
I think
don't
it is.
But, yeah. So I have gathered as much as I can at this point in time. Need to sit down with the mayor and review it. We know that our 3B tax, once that bond is paid off in 2025, we can utilize that in other places. We have a couple different options we could utilize it for. And then that would be less of a burden on the general fund at that point in time. So,
Well, some of these items, like I said, they're talking substation, another transformer. If we're gonna put, even if it's 4 years out, we need to start now. And the price of everything, the longer we wait, transformers have doubled over the last 4 or 5 years. It's just crazy, so if we can get something, if that's our plan, is, hey, we want to see a new transformer in that substation by 2028 or 2029, we need to make it happen now.
And one of the things is too, I don't want to say we're at the mercy of WAPA, but we're working inside WAPA's substation, so they get a check off on whatever we do. And that's some of the things that kind of take up time. It might be a 3-year out. I think Jared kind of mentioned that, but if you start the talks now, and what he kind of proposed, it might have to change, because WAPA might say, hey, we don't want you to do that, or they might say, yep, go ahead and do that. And so at least if we get the talk starting, we'll have something in place to move forward, have an idea.
And that's why we're talking about this right now, because, Kurt, we just got a couple of emails from Jared here in the last couple of days. I knew you guys would have a lot of questions, and then we don't have answers for yet, because we got to know what direction we're going. But Jared wants to start the talks with WAPA, which I think is a very good idea, just to see if, what our options are out there. But if it's not in the council's plan to put a transformer out there for 10 years, then we're, because things are going to change. 5 years from now, it's going to be.
We would be reckless to wait 10 years. That's not, I think everybody was, even though there were several reactions that night from council, I felt everybody was committed to, as soon as we can, we need to address this issue.
But we can only do what we can afford.
right, because
So,
at
I
this
mean-
point in time, with the two bonds that are out there, you've got approximately $2 million worth of borrowing power. That doesn't sound like that might get you half of your substation fixed. potentially.
Yeah.
So then we need to look at where are we gonna cut so we have the cash for it? Or our only other option then would be the surcharge on there. And we would have to start looking into where we're gonna get that. But that's something else we need to know. If, yes, we understand it's probably 3 years down the road before we do it, but they're also gonna want guaranteed payment of it. So we're gonna have to figure out where that payment's gonna come from before we sign any documents too.
Well, I look at it this way, something needs to be done because every business in town, if we go down, look at the revenue they lose. And that's gonna hurt us in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
And we do have some money laid away right now in electric. And so, and that money is there for that 100-year storm, you know, if this ever
Are you
happens.
talking about the casualty reserve fund?
Yes.
Yes. So if this ever
Plus cash
happens,
on hand.
if we have a tornado,
about
if this
2.7.
happens, we
In
got
here.
that money, well, maybe that, you know, that if happened this last year when we were shut down twice. So you know, that's what I'm saying, those are things to think about. Maybe that money's better used, rather than just sitting there doing nothing right now, maybe it's better being used right now because
That is
this could constitute a situation.
avoiding a casualty.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, clarify that again for me. So we have, or Shannon, we have $1 million, I know we have $1 million in the casualty reserve fund, but then.
$1,058,000.
What?
With $1,058,000 with the interest we've
Okay.
earned.
So $1,058,000 in the casualty reserve fund with the interest, plus we have
Cash
in
on
the
hand that's
electric,
unappropriated.
in the electric fund enterprise, we have 1 point,
Was it 1.7 or 1.3?
Give me like 2 hours after this meeting, I'll tell you exactly where you're at.
but yeah, there's
1.5.
there's over $1 million in the,
1.5.
in the electric enterprise cash on hand that is not, we're not using
Yes.
in the 24 budget.
You could
It's still.
absolutely use all of that cash with the potential of a sales tax bond so that you wouldn't have to raise rates, just understanding that if something else happens, then you have no money.
But that uses up our constitutional debt, sales tax bond, that's what we're getting at, right? Okay.
So, I mean, I guess, what I would be my suggestion is that we get Jared back up here and we have a real meeting about where we're gonna go. So we're on the same page, with some of these higher dollar items. Is that agreed?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you just want Jared, or do you want, well, I guess Trent knows the rest of the projects too, but ultimately, city as a whole needs to be looked at as well with the other projects coming through too.
Jared's
Because
the
if you-
electrical engineer.
Jared's the electrical, but you also have some water projects, you've got some street projects, some parks projects. All
I
of
don't
these
think we
things
wanna
that you're,
get too confused. I think we need to kind of
Electric.
focus on electrical, that's what the
Okay.
study was.
and I get that, I'm just saying, if you say that you're gonna spend it on electrical, then you have to shut down those other projects.
Well, I guess this next meet, if we get Jared up here, we have an hour in the morning, unless you guys can make a little more time or whatever, but, if we can get him up here to have that meeting, we can just get get a chance to pick his brain and get a little bit more out of him, you know, and then, once we have basically an idea or a blueprint of, you know, are we gonna follow the way he had it laid out? Anyways, just get that information out of him.
Kurt, Troy,
Just one
do you remember
hour.
what that transformer was out at the substation?
How much cost?
Price-wise?
2 million.
2 million? I couldn't remember.
We have it.
I think he had 2.5 for the entire sub, and that included that switchgear and stuff, and then they had some variable in there on it. I think the way he had it planned too, there was some bus work for WAPA and everything like that too.
Yeah, there might be some.
I think it was right around that 2.5 million for the substation itself, and then I think in phase 3, they were talking about replacing one of the other transformers now, and I kind of talked to him about that, and that was kind of the slide, get rid of that one that we share with Rosebud, kind of talking about that main one that we use now, using that as the backup, because, you know, it's newer. Like when he threw the 40-year number out, we know that one's 40 years old but the other one we think is older. Yeah,
35?
probably 50, 60, probably right around there.
Well, and that's another expense right there. That one that's sitting out there was put in '84. So at some point in time, it needs to be rebuilt. And
Yeah.
That's gonna be another expense.
He keeps, yeah, like that tap chain or, yeah, that LTC that he keeps talking about, the maintenance on those. Yeah, it's all gear driven in there and untanking it, but right now, you know, it's kind of tough to take them down and everything like that, so.
I mean, you can dump $3 million out in that substation in a victory.
And rock.
Has the law enforcement center completely repaid back the electric department?
Yes.
It does, okay.
The goal there is to get that bond paid ASAP.
What's your projections on that?
January?
January 25?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for that, is what I should say.
You got anything else that's not a year out?
2 weeks if we can dig.
How many meters you got in now?
1452, that's, you guys are talking about transformers, meter seals. Yeah, they hit backwards since November, like that, stuff like that, so we put in another 30 on Friday. We kinda have, I think, about 150 seals, but hopefully we'll have the meter seals within the next couple weeks and we'll just wrap it up. As far as changing them out, it shouldn't take us too long, probably 5 days to finish changing our meters out, so.
What about the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What about the no bid received on the transformers that we're done with or whatever? Is there no market on them or just nobody bid on them?
Oh, the surplus?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, so we sent those up there and they were ones that they told me that it'd cost too much for us to refurbish, and, when she kinda came back, they're $4 per KVA, so, and I can't remember what the KVAs were on these specific ones, but like if it was a 15 KVA, you're getting $4, so $60 a transformer. I don't know what they do with them, but as far as that goes, after them, but yeah, there's not really.
So that company where they're sitting right now is willing to pay for them?
Yeah.
So they need to write us a letter of what they're willing to
Okay.
pay, and then council technically has to accept that
Yeah.
because it was put out for bid, and we have to make
Right.
sure that it follows that.
Yeah, yeah, that's, they were.
Scrap.
Yeah, they're no value.
That's what I want to know. Are we gonna be left with them sitting in the yard?
No.
We're not.
No.
We didn't even go get them because it's not worth what we're gonna get for them. It's
Because
not even worth
you
them.
shipped them somewhere that say,
Yeah.
hey, rebuild this, you can. They said you can't. They're not worth it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they probably saved the tanks and stuff like that.
Mhm. Scrap them out.
Yeah.
Do whatever. Okay. I don't know of anything else for electric today.
Nope, I think that's it.
Isn't that enough? These guys, I took a look at these plans. They knocked it out with the study they did.